FX and crypto trading involves substantial risk and is not suitable for everyone. This video is not a recommendation to trade any asset. Brought to you by BCA Ventures. Go on forexbrokers.com and read all the detailed reviews that we publish. Very powerful research that we offer to you for free. And after a long week, big news announcements. CME announced that they would launch Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin soared to a record high near 7,300. It's hard to even know what the record high is because it's hitting a new record high like almost every day. There's been a lot of talk about Bitcoin and crypto and digital assets, but really the big concern is this SegWit2 hard fork, SegWit2x. Bitcoin has already hard forked before. It's had soft forks, but the prior events, when the forks happen, the new chain that was created, the new crypto that emerged from the main chain, only got very little support in terms of the hashing power. So the majority of the Bitcoin network has a ton of hashing power, and the difference is that with this upcoming fork, they're expecting that the majority of that hashing power moves over to the new SegWit2x coin. And there's a lot of confusion because, number one, that hashing power might not all move over right away to a significant degree. Miners are signaling NYA in their blocks. It's unclear how many of them will shift over. Each of them might be looking at the other miners to see who goes first and how much hashing power do they switch over. So there could be some massive volatility between these two chains, as you might have people that are panic selling the main Bitcoin. They probably won't have access to the new Bitcoin yet. But the problem, and this is the main problem, is there's no replay protection. So what that means is if people start to panic sell their Bitcoin from the main chain, that transaction could be replayed by miners on the other chain. So why would the miners do that? Typically you would think this is like a replay attack, right? If somebody's doing it to you, for malicious reasons. But if the miners are replaying this transaction on the other network, it's going to support the other network. But if you're sending to someone that created an address post fork, then and they created an original Bitcoin address post fork, and you go to send the money there, but the transaction you're sending, the miner processes on the other chain, then one coin will be lost because that person doesn't have a SegWit2 address. If your address is created under BIP32 and it's a hierarchical deterministic wallet, you can have multiple addresses tied to that main recovery seed. These new SegWit2 coins airdropped to your account because it's another address that's controlled by your master seed. So the wallet providers, they just have to point to another channel where the SegWit2 coin will be. And to make matters worse, they might call the SegWit2x coin the real Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin. Like Coinbase just said that they're going to call whatever chain has the most hashing power, that's the one they're going to call Bitcoin. So that could confuse a lot of people because they're not going to know exactly which one was their original Bitcoin. What they do is they're trying to keep people wherever the hashing power is. But, when will they make that decision? Will they wait 2 weeks? Will they wait a week? How fast will that transition happen of the hashing power? These are all the uncertainties that people are worried about. But the replay protection is the biggest risk, because if you attempt to transact Bitcoin or after the fork, I would imagine the safest transaction would be post-fork to send money to yourself, to another Bitcoin address that you own and control in terms of having the recovery seed. But I'm not sure. So this is a question I want to ask as well. The point is that there's multiple risks here. There's risks that your transaction could get replayed afterwards. There's risks that and again, when I say replay, it means if I send Bitcoin from the original chain to a Bitcoin address, then that same exact transaction could be replayed by miners on another chain, on the other SegWit2x chain, because it's from the same account and it's tied to the same recovery phrase. But in the other account, when they send that, depending on what address you're trying to send to, will affect if that money is lost potentially. Because if that address that it's sending it to is not SegWit2x compatible, then I guess money could be lost in a situation like that. So that's one issue. The second issue is some exchanges, as I mentioned earlier, might call, SegWit2x Bitcoin and might call the Bitcoin we know today these different naming conventions that are coming out, and that's confusing, because if you go to an exchange and they're selling Bitcoin, how are you going to know which Bitcoin it is? Because the prices may level out perhaps. The miners seem to support this, and I think not having replay protection gives them the upper hand, because they could decide to replay a transaction or not. And miners are miners. They're going to do whatever they can to mine more Bitcoin and make money and process transactions. They don't know if the transaction they're processing is going to result in an error or not. If you're the one that initiated the transaction and they're just processing it. So the responsibility, I feel, has been put to the wallet providers and exchanges to make sure that the wallet providers build out a number of variables to be SegWit2x compatible. There's test nets, there's things like serialization and port changes that have to be made, network magic changes, there's DNS seeds that they can use to test. And bottom line is, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion, massive volatility, and Bitcoin could trade between 2,000 and 10,000 over the next 30 days. Go on forexbrokers.com and read all the detailed reviews that we publish, very powerful research that we offer to you for free. But trying to time the market is going to be really, really, really dangerous. So it's tough to if someone decides, they're going to sit on the sidelines and wait to jump back in. A lot of people have regretted selling their Bitcoin. It's been like one of the biggest regrets, not mining enough of it, not buying enough of it, and selling it. If Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million like some people believe it will, then one could expect that it's going to go through periods of ups and downs, as it has already. It's already bubbled several dozen times. But if you go back and examine all the small gains it made over the past nearly 9 years, it's already been through plenty of bubbles. The interest is just growing, and the conversion of these trillions and trillions of dollars of fiat are starting to slowly pour into crypto, as we already Bitcoin surpassed $100 billion in its market cap. So it's already at $1/10 trillion dollars in valuation. That's huge. This new technology is accelerating so fast, and Bitcoin's like the guinea pig. It has the most power, but it's about to experience a major, major event. It's going to be tested at its core, and that's going to be a gauge that people use in the crypto universe to think about what could unfold with other decentralized public cryptocurrencies. This will be a good example, because the confusion levels and the uncertainty is escalating very fast. Coinbase, again, they came out a week or so ago with an announcement saying, we're going to call the SegWit2x coin the 2x coin. But then, in response to confusion from their customers, they said, okay, no, we're going to call whichever one has the most hashing power Bitcoin. That's also confusing. So there's these conflicting views, and that's why the hard fork's happening in the first place, because you have two different kind of groups. The ones that oppose the SegWit2x, they want to keep Bitcoin the way it was and just deal with the limitations of the size of the block. The media and the industry leaders should talk about, in the public before this hard fork, what the industry should really be aware of, and what steps people could take, because the confusion levels and the uncertainty is escalating very fast. This video is not a recommendation to trade any asset. I may be wrong about certain things. There could be inaccurate data referenced. Blockchain is highly experimental and crypto involves tremendous risk.